Did you know that over 7 million people in the UK are now struggling to afford basic necessities like food and energy? That's more than the entire population of Scotland. And yet, this may only be the beginning. Economists are warning that a much larger economic collapse is looming, one that could make the 2008 financial crisis look like a minor speed bump. The signs are everywhere, but most people don't even see it coming. We're talking about a perfect storm: crippling inflation, skyrocketing interest rates, collapsing public services, mass business closures, and a housing market that's completely out of reach for the average citizen. Behind the headlines and political spin, the numbers are painting a terrifying picture. The kind of picture that makes you wonder, are we sleepwalking into the worst economic disaster the UK has seen in decades? In this video, we're going to break down 10 undeniable reasons why experts believe the UK is heading straight toward its worst economic crisis in modern history. And we're not talking theories. We'll show you the real data, real signs, and real consequences already unfolding. So stay with us until the end, because this information might just be what you need to protect yourself and your family from what's coming next. Number 1. Cost of living explosion. In the last 2 years, the UK has seen one of the sharpest increases in living costs in decades. Food prices have soared by over 25%, energy bills have doubled for many households, and rent prices in cities like London and Manchester are reaching record highs. What makes this even more alarming is that these increases are not being matched by wages. According to the Office for National Statistics, more than 60% of households are now spending over half of their income just to cover basic necessities. That's not just a squeeze, it's economic suffocation. For millions, it's no longer about saving or planning for the future. It's about survival. This isn't just happening in the headlines, it's unfolding in everyday life. People are skipping meals to pay heating bills, turning off fridges to save electricity, and cutting back on essential medical expenses. Food banks have seen a 40% surge in demand, while charities report more working families relying on emergency aid than ever before. Inflation may be cooling on paper, but the reality on the ground is harsh and unforgiving. Even essentials like milk, eggs, and bread have become luxury items for some. And for those on fixed incomes, such as pensioners or students, the situation is even more dire. They are simply being left behind. What's even more worrying is that this cost of living crisis is not expected to go away anytime soon. Analysts warn that even if inflation slows down, prices are unlikely to return to pre-crisis levels. In other words, the high cost of living is here to stay. This new economic reality is already reshaping how people live, spend, and survive. And if this trend continues, we could see a permanent underclass emerge. Millions who simply can't afford a basic standard of life in one of the world's richest economies. Number 2. Stagnant wages. While prices have surged across nearly every sector of daily life, wages in the UK have barely moved. In fact, when adjusted for inflation, real wages have actually fallen, meaning people are earning less today than they were a decade ago in terms of actual buying power. According to the Bank of England, wage growth has lagged significantly behind inflation, with some sectors seeing no meaningful pay rise since 2010. This isn't just a statistic, it's a slow bleed on household finances. Imagine earning the same salary while your grocery bill, rent, and utilities all double. That's the reality for millions right now. The situation is especially hard on younger workers, low-income earners, and those in essential but undervalued jobs like healthcare, retail, and education. Even as people work longer hours, pick up second jobs, or enter the gig economy just to stay afloat, the rewards are shrinking. In some cases, full-time workers are relying on food banks to get through the week. This widening gap between effort and reward is creating a sense of hopelessness and frustration across the workforce. It's not just a financial issue anymore, it's an emotional and psychological one. When people feel like no matter how hard they can't get ahead, it erodes trust in the system. What's more alarming is that this stagnation isn't a short-term problem, it's structural. The UK economy has shifted toward lower-paid service jobs, while automation and outsourcing continue to pressure wages. Without intervention, this trend could become permanent, leading to a generation of workers trapped in a cycle of low pay and high costs. In a country that once promised upward mobility and opportunity, the dream of financial stability is slipping further out of reach for the average person. Number 3. National debt crisis. The UK's national debt has quietly reached a historic milestone, over 100% of the country's GDP. That means the government now owes more money than the entire British economy produces in a year. For many, national debt might sound abstract or distant, but it directly affects every citizen. When debt rises to this level, the government is forced to spend more on interest payments than on essential services like education, healthcare, or public safety. In fact, in 2025 alone, the UK is projected to spend over £100 billion just on debt interest, money that could otherwise go to fixing schools, supporting the NHS, or investing in infrastructure. What makes this situation even more dangerous is that debt isn't just growing because of spending. It's being inflated by rising interest rates. As the Bank of England hikes rates to combat inflation, the cost of borrowing goes up not just for individuals and businesses, but also for the government. That means future generations will be saddled with even more repayments, just to cover today's crisis. This cycle of borrowing to cover past borrowing is unsustainable and sets the stage for a sovereign debt crisis, similar to what Greece experienced during its economic collapse in the 2010s. To make matters worse, this high debt level limits the government's ability to respond to future emergencies. If another pandemic, financial crash, or global conflict hits, there's very little financial room left to act. It's like maxing out your credit card and hoping nothing goes wrong. The margin for error is gone. And when global investors start questioning the UK's ability to manage its finances, confidence drops, borrowing costs rise further, and the economy becomes even more vulnerable. This isn't a slow leak, it's a ticking time bomb that could explode at any moment. Number 4. Housing market collapse. The UK housing market is no longer just unaffordable, it's becoming unsustainable. Over the past decade, house prices have surged at a rate far outpacing wages, locking an entire generation out of homeownership. According to Halifax, the average UK house price is now over 9 times the average salary, making it nearly impossible for first-time buyers to get on the ladder without significant help. In cities like London, that figure is even more extreme. As interest rates rise, mortgage payments have skyrocketed, pushing more homeowners to the edge and pricing out potential buyers entirely. The market is cooling, but not in a healthy way. It's stalling under pressure. Landlords are also under strain, with many exiting the market due to higher taxes, tighter regulations, and mounting mortgage costs. This has caused a rental crisis across the country, with demand outpacing supply and rental prices hitting record highs. In some areas, bidding wars are breaking out just for a one-bedroom flat. For renters, it's a nightmare. For landlords, it's increasingly unprofitable. And for the economy, it's a sign of a system cracking under its own weight. Housing was once seen as a safe investment and a foundation for financial security. Now, it's a burden, even an asterisk trap, for both buyers and renters alike. What's even more concerning is the looming threat of a market correction or crash. With high interest rates, stagnant wages, and a cost of living crisis in full swing, demand for property is dropping while defaults on mortgages are rising. Some analysts warn that the UK could be heading toward a sharp decline in property values, especially in overinflated urban markets. If that happens, millions of people could find themselves in negative equity, owing more on their homes than they are worth. And when the housing market falls, it doesn't fall alone. It drags the entire economy with it. Number 5. Brexit aftershocks. It's been several years since the UK officially left the European Union, but the economic tremors of Brexit are still being felt, and in many ways, they're getting worse. When Brexit was first sold to the public, it promised economic freedom, stronger trade deals, and less red tape. But in reality, what we've seen is the opposite. UK exports to the EU have dropped significantly. Small businesses have been crushed by new customs checks and regulations, and industries that relied on seamless trade, like farming, fishing, and manufacturing, are now fighting to survive. Trade barriers have created delays, increased costs, and pushed many companies to move operations overseas. One of the most damaging consequences has been the labor shortage. With tighter immigration rules and a declining EU workforce, key sectors like healthcare, hospitality, and construction have been left scrambling to fill roles. The result? Slower services, rising wages that small businesses can't afford, and overall productivity taking a hit. The UK economy is growing at a slower rate than its European neighbors, and many economists directly attribute this to Brexit-related disruption. Even big companies are holding back on investment due to ongoing uncertainty about trade policies and market access. What's especially troubling is that these aftershocks don't seem to be going away. In fact, they are baking themselves into the economy. While Brexit was framed as a one-time event, its consequences are long-term and structural. And unlike temporary inflation or short-term market volatility, these are changes that reshape entire industries and workforces. The economic fallout of Brexit isn't just about missed opportunities. It's about long-term damage to the UK's global competitiveness. If the country can't adapt quickly, it risks falling behind not just Europe, but the rest of the developed world in the years to come. If this is hitting close to home, pause for a second and drop a comment. What changes are you seeing around you? We spend hours crafting these videos to bring you the truth. So hit that subscribe button. It's just one click, but it means the world to us. Number 6. Interest rate squeeze. In an attempt to combat soaring inflation, the Bank of England has been steadily raising interest rates, but this move has come with serious consequences. For homeowners with variable rate mortgages, monthly repayments have jumped by hundreds of pounds almost overnight. Even those with fixed-rate deals are now facing much higher costs as they come up for renewal. In fact, more than 1.5 million households are expected to remortgage in the next year, and many will be hit with interest rates they simply can't afford. What was once considered manageable debt is now turning into a financial nightmare for the average family. But it doesn't stop with mortgages. Credit card debt, personal loans, and car finance have all become significantly more expensive. Small businesses that rely on loans to operate are also feeling the pressure, with higher borrowing costs cutting deep into their already thin margins. For every percentage point interest rates rise, it becomes harder for individuals and companies to borrow, invest, or even survive. This creates a ripple effect throughout the economy, slowing growth, reducing consumer spending, and increasing the risk of bankruptcies. It's a classic case of fighting one problem, inflation, by creating another, a credit crunch that hurts the very people the system is supposed to protect. The deeper issue is that these rate hikes are happening in an economy that's already weak. Unlike past periods of high interest, this isn't a time of strong growth or booming jobs. It's a time of fragility. So every increase in rates is like tightening the noose around the neck of an already struggling economy. If rates continue to rise, or even remain this high for much longer, the UK could face a wave of defaults, repossessions, and a sharp decline in consumer confidence. That's not just bad news for individuals. It's a recipe for a full-scale recession. Number 7. Small business collapse. Small businesses are often called the backbone of the UK economy, but right now, that backbone is beginning to crack. Since early 2024, the number of small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, filing for insolvency has risen by over 30%, according to government data. From high street shops and cafes to local service providers, thousands are being pushed out of business due to rising energy costs, wage pressures, and reduced consumer spending. These businesses don't have the financial cushioning that large corporations do. Even a slight shift in interest rates, utility bills, or supplier costs can be the difference between survival and closure. Many small businesses are also still recovering from the twin shocks of Brexit and the pandemic. Staff shortages, supply chain disruptions, and now, a customer base that's cutting back on spending due to the cost of living crisis. It's a perfect storm. High streets across the UK are visibly emptier. Once thriving local hubs are now dotted with for-lease signs and boarded-up windows. This isn't just an economic issue, it's a social one. Small businesses support local jobs, bring communities together, and keep money circulating in neighborhoods. When they vanish, the the social fabric of towns and cities begins to unravel. What's even more alarming is the lack of targeted support. While large companies often benefit from bailouts, tax breaks, or access to easier credit, small business owners are being left behind. They are stuck between rising operating costs and customers who simply can't afford to spend. Without urgent intervention, we could see a permanent shift where big corporations dominate and small businesses become a thing of the past. That would lead to less choice for consumers, less innovation, and fewer local opportunities, a slow but devastating erosion of the economic diversity that once made the UK's economy resilient. Number 8. Public services breakdown. Across the UK, public services are reaching a breaking point, and the cracks are now impossible to ignore. The NHS, once a symbol of national pride, is now facing record waiting times, chronic understaffing, and a backlog of over 7 million patients. Emergency services are overwhelmed, with ambulances queuing outside hospitals and GP appointments harder to secure than ever. Schools are dealing with teacher shortages, outdated facilities, and increasing class sizes. Local councils are slashing services just to stay afloat, and libraries, youth centers, and public transport networks are being cut or shut down altogether. These aren't just inconveniences. They're signs of a system under extreme financial stress. The economic consequences of this decline are far-reaching. When people can't access timely healthcare, they miss more work, rely more on social care, and take longer to recover. When education falters, future productivity and innovation decline. When public transport is unreliable or unaffordable, it limits access to jobs and opportunities. These services are more than just safety nets. They're engines of economic stability and growth. Without them functioning properly, inequality widens, regional economies suffer, and the cycle of poverty deepens. What's more, the cost of fixing these broken systems later will be far higher than maintaining them today. Funding cuts have been a problem for years, but inflation and rising operational costs have made things dramatically worse. Staff are striking across sectors because wages haven't kept up with living costs. Recruitment is down. Morale is lower than ever. And as more professionals leave the public sector for better-paid private roles, or leave entirely, the pressure on those who remain becomes unbearable. If this continues, we're not just talking about underperforming services. We're talking about systemic collapse, where essential needs can no longer be met by the state. That's not just a crisis, it's a national emergency in slow motion. Number 9. Youth employment crisis. The UK is facing a silent but devastating crisis, a generation of young people unable to find stable, meaningful work. Youth unemployment is rising at an alarming rate, with nearly 1 in 8 young people aged 16 to 24 now classified as NEET, not in education, employment, or training. Graduates are leaving university with record levels of debt, only to find themselves working in low-paid, insecure jobs that have little to do with their qualifications. Apprenticeships are in decline, entry-level roles are being automated or outsourced, and many young people are caught in a cycle of short-term contracts, zero-hour gigs, and career stagnation. This crisis isn't just about job numbers. It's about the quality and future of work. The current job market is failing to provide young people with the opportunities they need to build careers, gain skills, and move toward financial independence. Without access to stable employment, many are delaying life milestones, moving out, starting families, or buying homes. Mental health issues among young adults are also on the rise, fueled by economic anxiety and a sense of hopelessness about the future. When an entire generation feels locked out of progress, it doesn't just hurt them, it undermines the entire economy's long-term potential. At the heart of this problem is a mismatch between what young people are being trained for and what the economy actually needs. Schools and universities are often disconnected from labor market demands, and many young people graduate without the practical skills or experience employers are looking for. Meanwhile, government support programs are either underfunded or poorly targeted. Without urgent reforms to education, training, and employment pathways, the UK risks creating a lost generation, a cohort of young people who, through no fault of their own, may never reach their full potential. Number 10. Investor confidence collapse. Perhaps one of the most subtle yet serious indicators of an impending economic crisis is the sharp decline in investor confidence. Foreign direct investment, FDI, into the UK has dropped significantly in the last few years, falling behind competitors like Germany, France, and even smaller European economies. Global investors are pulling back, not because the UK lacks potential, but because it now appears too unstable, too risky, and too uncertain. From political instability and erratic policymaking to ongoing Brexit complications and economic stagnation, the message is clear. International capital is looking elsewhere. This retreat of investment has real-world consequences. When investors lose confidence, they stop funding infrastructure, businesses, innovation, and job creation. Startups struggle to raise capital. Major companies delay expansion or shift operations overseas. The City of London, once seen as a global financial powerhouse, is gradually losing its shine. And as the FTSE continues to underperform compared to other major indices, the ripple effect spreads: lower pension returns, fewer jobs, and slower overall economic growth. Investor confidence isn't just about headlines. It's about the fuel that keeps the economy moving. Even domestic investors are growing cautious. Property developers are halting projects, banks are tightening lending standards, and more wealth is being held in safe, low-yield assets rather than being put to work in the economy. This freeze in investment reflects a deeper problem: a lack of faith in the future direction of the country. If capital is the lifeblood of a modern economy, then investor confidence is the heartbeat. And right now, that heartbeat is faint. Unless trust is restored through clear leadership, economic reform, and long-term planning, the UK risks entering a downward spiral where opportunity shrinks, innovation stalls, and recovery becomes even more difficult. The signs are no longer subtle. From skyrocketing living costs and stagnant wages to collapsing services and vanishing investor confidence, the UK is walking a dangerous economic tightrope. This isn't fear-mongering. It's the reality backed by hard data, lived experience, and a system that's slowly buckling under pressure. And while some of these issues may seem out of your control, being informed is the first step to protecting yourself and your future. So what can you do? Start by tightening your financial habits, cut unnecessary expenses, pay down high-interest debts, and consider building multiple income streams. Stay alert, stay educated, and think long-term. In uncertain times, knowledge is more powerful than ever. And remember, you're not powerless. Collective awareness leads to collective action, and even in crisis, there are opportunities for resilience, for reinvention, and for reform. If this video opened your eyes, drop a comment below and tell us, what signs of economic stress have you noticed in your own life or community? Your perspective might help someone else understand they are not alone. We pour countless hours into researching, scripting, and producing these videos to bring you the truth behind the headlines. So if you found this valuable, please support us with a like, subscribe to our channel. It only takes one click, and share this video with someone who needs to see it. Your support means everything.